I've always believed my life to be an unremarkable blend of routine and subtle aspirations. I went about my days with quiet determination, working hard at my modest job, meeting friends for occasional coffee, and returning home to a small apartment that was my safe haven. Yet, beneath the surface of everyday predictability, there was a secret world I had built for myself, a life of clandestine midnight trysts, hidden away in the shadows of my own desires. I had long mastered the art of keeping these escapades secret, each rendezvous carefully concealed like a precious, shameful treasure. But nothing in my carefully constructed world could have prepared me for the night a strange purchase alert shattered the fragile barrier between my two worlds. It began on an otherwise unexceptional Tuesday. I was sprawled on my couch in the late afternoon, idly scrolling through social media on my phone while waiting for the kettle to boil for my tea. The familiar chime of an incoming notification sounded, a sound I'd grown accustomed to, yet that day it carried an edge of unfamiliarity. The alert read, "Purchase confirmed, Hummies, limited edition scarf and accessories." I paused. My heart skipped a beat. I had never knowingly bought designer accessories. In fact, I'd always prided myself on a frugal, minimalist lifestyle. I stared at the message in disbelief, wondering if it were a glitch, a misdirected purchase confirmation, or something far more significant. At first, I assumed it might be a mistake, a wrong number or a misapplied email address, but as I scrolled further, I saw additional notifications: purchase confirmed, Gucci, Midnight Collection handbag, and purchase confirmed, Prada, exclusive jewelry set. Each alert was as detailed and unambiguous as the last, and they all pointed to luxury items that I could never have afforded or even dreamed of owning. I felt my pulse quicken, and a cold bead of sweat trickled down my neck. Had someone hacked my account? Or, more disturbingly, was it evidence that I was unknowingly living a double life? For a long, torturous moment, I sat frozen on my couch, my mind racing through possibilities. I recalled the long nights of restless sleep after leaving work, the solitary walks in the quiet hours of midnight, and the brief, secret encounters that had both exhilarated and tormented me. I had convinced myself that those nights were nothing more than fleeting diversions, moments of passion that existed solely in the dark corners of my memory. But now, these purchase alerts, arriving with clinical precision, hinted at a truth far more startling. My secret trysts were not only real but were being recorded in transactions, leaving an indelible digital trail. I grabbed my phone and opened my banking app to review recent transactions. There, amidst the routine expenses and utility bills, were several charges for exorbitant amounts, charges for high-end boutiques and luxury designers that I could not recall authorizing. My heart pounded in my chest as I stared at the numbers, each one a silent testament to the double life I had crafted. In that moment, the comfortable illusion of my everyday existence shattered, replaced by the stark reality of my hidden desires and secret escapades. I spent the rest of the day in a haze, my mind reeling with questions. How had I allowed this to happen without my conscious knowledge? Was I so lost in my own routine that I had become unaware of the nocturnal adventures that had begun to define me? The more I pondered, the more I realized that every midnight encounter I had ever arranged, the carefully planned meeting spots, the secret codes exchanged via text, the intoxicating thrill of disappearing into the night, had been logged without my deliberate memory. It was as if my subconscious had taken control, orchestrating a series of clandestine rendezvous that revealed a side of me I had long repressed. That evening, unable to shake the overwhelming swell of emotions, I sat at my desk and began to write. I poured out every detail I could recall: the long drives under starlit skies, the hush of conversation in upscale hotel lobbies, the fleeting caress of a stranger's hand in the dark. Each memory was a brushstroke on the canvas of my secret life. I had always believed that I was in control, that I had neatly compartmentalized the parts of myself that craved adventure from the parts that clung to safety. But now, these alerts forced me to confront the reality that I was living a double life, a life where my hidden passions were not only alive but were being traded like precious commodities. Over the next few days, I began to piece together fragments of my past. I combed through old emails and text messages, searching for any clue that could explain these transactions. I found receipts from boutiques that I didn't even remember visiting, cryptic messages with dates and locations that corresponded to nights I had spent wandering the city, and photos, faded, grainy snapshots of glamorous outfits, a glimpse of a chic handbag, the sparkle of designer jewelry catching the light in a dim restaurant. The evidence was undeniable. I had been engaging in midnight trysts with an intensity and regularity that I had never fully acknowledged to myself. The discovery filled me with a heady mixture of shame, exhilaration, and confusion. I felt like an actress who had been living in a carefully scripted play, only now realizing that the script was not my own. Every secret meeting, every furtive glance in a crowded lounge, every whispered promise in the dead of night was laid bare before me by these impersonal digital alerts. I began to question everything, my identity, my choices, and the hidden forces that had driven me to this point. One rainy evening, as I sat in a small, dimly lit cafe trying to make sense of the whirlwind of revelations, I met an old friend by chance, Elena, someone who had known me during a period of wild, unapologetic youth. Over a cup of steaming coffee, I recounted the discovery, hesitating as I struggled to find the right words to describe the sensation of being both betrayed and liberated by my own hidden desires. Elena listened intently, her eyes reflecting a mix of surprise and empathy. "Sometimes," she said quietly, "we bury parts of ourselves so deeply that even we forget they exist. But the truth has a way of surfacing when you least expect it." Her words resonated with me, offering a glimmer of solace amidst the chaos. Yet, they also stirred a gnawing fear. What if the exposure of my secret life was only the beginning of a reckoning I wasn't ready to face? That night, I returned home and locked myself in the solitude of my apartment. I spent hours analyzing every alert, every receipt, every scrap of memory that had resurfaced. I began to trace a pattern, an almost ritualistic sequence that revealed the timing and locations of my midnight trysts. I realized that these encounters were not random, they followed a hidden, compulsive pattern that I had orchestrated unconsciously over the years. It was as if I had created a secret map of desire, one that led me to opulent hotel lobbies, to chic restaurants that served as the backdrop for these clandestine meetings, and to darkened corridors where passion flickered briefly before fading into the night. As the clock ticked past midnight, I sat by my window watching the city below, its lights blurred by the rain. In the silence, I felt the weight of my own choices pressing down on me. I wondered whether these midnight trysts had been an escape from the drudgery of my daily life, or a desperate cry for something more, something that had been missing for so long. In that vulnerable moment, I allowed myself to confront the truth. I had been living in fear of my own potential, too afraid to embrace the passion and unpredictability that life had to offer. And now, exposed by the cold logic of digital transactions, I was forced to reckon with the consequences of that self-imposed exile. The revelation was both terrifying and liberating. I realized that my secret life, with all its glamour and risk, was a testament to the parts of me that had long been silenced by routine. It was proof that I had once dared to live with abandon, that I had allowed myself to be swept up in the thrill of the unknown. But it also raised a painful question: could I ever reclaim that fearless, unapologetic self, or had I become too entrenched in a life of caution to ever break free? In the days that followed, I resolved to confront the enigma head-on. I began to document every detail in a leather-bound journal, determined to understand the forces that had driven me to this hidden existence. I wrote about the heady nights of stolen passion, the quiet afterglow of forbidden embraces, and the bittersweet realization that I had been living a double life without even realizing it. Each entry was a cathartic release, a step toward acknowledging the parts of me I had long denied. I started to experiment with reclaiming my lost identity. I ventured out at night, retracing the steps of my past trysts with a mixture of trepidation and curiosity. I visited the upscale hotel where I had once slipped into a secret suite. I returned to the chic restaurant that had played host to a dinner of whispered confessions. With each visit, I felt the echoes of my former self stirring, as if the spaces themselves remembered the wild, unrestrained joy of those hidden moments. It wasn't long before I encountered something that made my heart race anew. One rainy night, as I wandered the neon-lit streets with an almost deliberate aimlessness, I noticed a figure in the distance, a man standing beneath a flickering street lamp, his silhouette outlined against the shimmering rain. There was something hauntingly familiar about him, something that sent a shiver down my spine. I hesitated, then approached. His eyes met mine with a mixture of recognition and guarded caution. "I thought you might come back," he murmured, his voice low and edged with both regret and longing. In that moment, I realized that he, too, was part of the tapestry of my secret life, a lingering memory from nights past whose presence stirred feelings I had long tried to bury. I didn't know what to say. Our conversation was brief, a few exchanged words that hinted at shared secrets and lost time, but his presence confirmed what I had suspected all along. I was not the only one haunted by these hidden rendezvous. There were others, shadows in the night whose lives intersected with mine in fleeting, ephemeral moments. This realization added another layer of complexity to my journey. It wasn't merely a matter of reconciling with my own desires, it was about understanding a network of souls bound together by the shared need to escape, to experience life in its raw, unfiltered form. As the days turned into weeks, I found myself oscillating between shame and exhilaration, between the fear of exposure and the undeniable pull of a life lived in the margins. I began to question what I truly wanted from these midnight escapades. Were they simply an escape from the suffocating routine of my daily existence, or did they represent something deeper, a quest for meaning, connection, and perhaps even redemption? The answer, I realized, was as elusive as the shimmering reflections of city lights on wet pavement. That very night, I returned to my apartment with a newfound determination. I sat at my desk and began to write a letter, to myself, to the unknown forces that had orchestrated this double life, and perhaps even to the mysterious man whose presence had rekindled a spark I thought long extinguished. In that letter, I vowed to no longer let fear dictate my choices, to embrace both the pain and the beauty of my hidden truths. I wrote of the nights that had changed me, of the taste of forbidden luxury, and of the unyielding hope that had somehow managed to persist despite years of quiet conformity. Even as I poured out my thoughts on paper, I knew that this was only the beginning. The strange purchase alerts had exposed a hidden pattern, a pattern that was as much a part of my past as it was a beacon for my future. I was determined to unravel every thread, to confront every secret, and to reclaim the life that had been slipping through my fingers for so long. There was an intensity in the air, a promise that if I dared to embrace the unknown, I could rediscover the vibrant, passionate self I had once been. Now, as I sit here in the dim light of dawn, the remnants of rain still clinging to the city's pavement, I feel a stirring within me, a mixture of trepidation and anticipation. The journey to understand my hidden midnight trysts has just begun, and the strange purchase alerts are only the first sign of the secrets that lie beneath the surface of my carefully constructed world. I know that the path ahead will be fraught with revelations that may challenge everything I thought I knew about myself. But I also know that it is a path I must walk, for within its twists and turns lies the promise of a life fully and unapologetically lived. For now, I close my journal and take a deep breath, steeling myself for whatever comes next. The night has spoken its secrets, and I have listened. In that fragile space between fear and hope, I have glimpsed a version of myself that is daring, luminous, and fiercely alive. And though I do not yet know where this journey will lead, I am ready to follow its call, to embrace the midnight, the mystery, and the transformative power of my hidden truths. The days following that fateful night were a restless blur. I found myself haunted by vivid recollections of clandestine rendezvous, the sound of hushed conversations in dimly lit corridors, the scent of expensive perfume lingering in upscale hotel lobbies, and the unmistakable thrill of disappearing into the night. Every new purchase alert that arrived on my phone, a confirmation of another designer accessory I had no recollection of ordering, was a dagger that pricked at my carefully constructed sense of self. It was as if my hidden pattern of midnight trysts had been meticulously documented by an unseen hand, leaving behind a digital trail I could neither deny nor fully understand. I spent the first few days in a state of agonizing introspection. I would sit at my desk with the leather-bound journal from that stormy night in Part 1, turning its pages slowly as if each word might hold the key to the mystery. The entries were raw, a collection of fragmented memories that spoke of a life lived in secret. I had written about the thrill of stolen moments, the bittersweet taste of luxury that both exhilarated and haunted me, and the recurring theme of an inner self that yearned to break free from the monotony of a predictable life. I wondered how long I had been so effectively compartmentalizing my desires that I could no longer discern whether they were truly mine or the product of some orchestrated scheme. My internal struggle reached its peak one rainy evening. The city was a canvas of glistening wet streets and blurred neon lights as I walked aimlessly along sidewalks I had once known so well. I needed answers. I decided to retrace the steps of my midnight escapes, not simply as a passive observer of a hidden past, but as an active seeker of truth. I visited the chic hotel where I had once slipped into a private suite, the upscale restaurant where hushed confessions had taken place, and even the secluded park where I had once met a mysterious stranger whose eyes had seemed to mirror my own hidden longings. At the hotel, the doorman greeted me with a polite nod, unaware of the inner turmoil raging within me. I walked through the opulent lobby, its marble floors and polished surfaces reflecting memories of nights filled with secret laughter and stolen kisses. I approached the reception desk and inquired, quietly, almost hesitantly, if there was any record of reservations under a variation of my name. The manager's eyes flickered with a knowing sadness as she searched the system. "There are records, miss. It appears the reservations were made with slight alterations," she murmured. Her words confirmed what I had feared. I was not merely imagining a life of extravagant solitude. Someone, or perhaps some part of me, had been orchestrating these midnight trysts with the precision of a secret ritual. Later that week, while I sat in the solitude of my apartment, the buzz of another purchase alert shattered my reverie. This time, the alert confirmed a new transaction for an exquisite pair of designer heels, a pair so elegant and daring that even the mere thought of them set my heart racing. I stared at the confirmation message in disbelief. My fingers trembled as I realized that each alert wasn't random but part of a larger, recurring pattern, a pattern that began to map out a secret life I had never consciously led. Driven by a mix of terror and the desperate need for liberation, I resolved to confront the truth head-on. I called a trusted friend, Amelia, whose forthright honesty had always provided me solace in times of confusion. In a hushed tone, I recounted the string of alerts, the mysterious charges, and the fragmented memories that now emerged as undeniable evidence. Amelia's response was gentle but direct. "You need to face this, even if it's painful. Sometimes the parts of us we hide in darkness are the very parts that hold our power." Her words struck a chord deep within me. I realized that I had been living in denial, suppressing desires that once made my spirit soar. It was as though I had cast my authentic self into shadow, fearing the vulnerability that came with unguarded passion. And now, with every designer accessory purchased on my behalf, that repressed self was demanding to be seen. That night, I decided to step into the very world I had spent so long keeping hidden. I dressed deliberately in an outfit that balanced understated elegance with the boldness I had long admired in others, a sleek black dress paired with a statement necklace that glinted like fragments of a forgotten dream. With a deep, steadying breath, I left my apartment and drove to a location that had been a recurring destination in my midnight escapades, a discreet, upscale lounge tucked away in a repurposed industrial building. Its entrance was unmarked, its interior accessible only to those who knew its secrets. As I stepped into the lounge, I was enveloped by an atmosphere that was at once luxurious and intimate. Soft lighting, hushed conversations, and the gentle clink of fine glassware created a symphony of sensations that made my pulse race. I found a quiet corner and took a seat, allowing the ambience to wash over me. In that moment, I realized that the lounge was a sanctuary for those like me, individuals who had danced with the night, who had sought refuge in the beauty of stolen moments and secret trysts. While I was lost in thought, a familiar face emerged from the crowd, a man I recognized from a particularly memorable night years ago, when our eyes had met in a crowded hotel lobby and exchanged a brief but charged smile. His presence stirred something deep within me, a mix of nostalgia and renewed longing. He approached me, his expression both gentle and curious. "I've been waiting for you," he said softly, his voice resonating with the warmth of remembered promises. In his eyes, I saw the reflection of my own hidden self, a part that had never truly vanished but had been waiting for the moment to reappear. We talked for what felt like hours. Over shared glasses of champagne, he recounted his own story, tales of a life lived on the fringes of societal expectations, of nights filled with the bittersweet interplay of risk and romance, and of the moments that had forced him to confront the truth about who he was. His name was Marcus, and his presence offered a mirror through which I could begin to see my own hidden patterns without shame. "We all have these parts of ourselves that we lock away," Marcus said, his gaze steady. "Sometimes it takes a series of unexplainable events to force them into the light. Tonight, let's honor what we have been too afraid to admit." His words echoed in me, stirring a courage I had long thought lost. I began to see that my secret pattern of midnight trysts wasn't something to be condemned but a complex tapestry of passion, escape, and a desperate yearning for authenticity. The realization was both cathartic and terrifying. I recalled every secret encounter, the exhilaration of clandestine meetings, the thrill of slipping away into the night, and the quiet moments afterward when I would wonder if I had truly lived or merely fantasized about the life I craved. In the weeks that followed, I took deliberate steps to reclaim my identity. I revisited the places that had once been mere backdrops to my hidden affairs, the chic hotel corridors, the secluded bars, the late-night diners that had served as meeting points for these forbidden moments. With Marcus by my side on some of those journeys, I began to reconstruct the mosaic of my secret life. Each visit was a confrontation with the past, a moment of raw vulnerability where I acknowledged both the beauty and the cost of living in the shadows. I started to write again, filling pages with honest reflections, detailed memories, and the raw emotions that I had kept hidden for so long. In my journal, I traced the arc of my secret existence, the thrill of the unknown, the guilt of living a double life, and ultimately, the liberating truth that to truly live, one must embrace every facet of one's identity. The act of writing became a powerful tool of self-reclamation, a way to transform painful secrets into stepping stones toward a more authentic future. Yet, not all was gentle revelation. With each step toward self-acceptance came moments of painful reckoning. I encountered old acquaintances who recognized the hints of a change in me, the confident stride, the glimmer in my eyes that spoke of nights filled with daring and transformation. Some questioned me, their voices laced with concern and disbelief. "What happened to you?" they would ask. "You seem different." Their words, though well-intentioned, stung with the reminder that the life I had hidden was now impossible to ignore. I struggled to explain that I was not seeking to shock anyone. I was merely reclaiming the parts of myself that had long been suppressed by fear and the need for conformity. One particular confrontation remains etched in my memory. I met an old friend, Rebecca, for lunch at a quaint cafe that once served as a backdrop for our carefree days. Over steaming cups of herbal tea, she looked at me with a mixture of curiosity and pity. "I remember when you used to be so full of life," she said softly. "Now, you seem haunted, as if you're running from something." I searched for the right words, torn between the desire to protect my newfound truth and the need to be honest. "I'm not running," I finally replied, my voice trembling with both vulnerability and resolve. "I'm trying to catch up with the parts of me I lost along the way." Her silence spoke volumes, a mixture of understanding and sorrow, reminding me that embracing change often comes at the cost of old certainties. As summer edged into early fall, the strange purchase alerts continued sporadically, each one a reminder of the life I had once secretly led. And with each alert, I grew more determined to integrate that hidden self into my waking reality. I began to see that the midnight trysts, once shrouded in guilt and secrecy, were also a source of deep passion and vitality. I realized that the allure of designer accessories and the thrill of exclusive bookings were not merely symbols of decadence but markers of a life lived at the edge, a life where every moment was an opportunity to feel deeply, to connect intensely, and to defy the humdrum of societal expectations. One particularly transformative night, I received a final alert that would serve as a turning point. The message was simple: your journey of self-discovery continues at the moonlit terrace. Tonight, let your heart speak its truth. With a mix of anticipation and trepidation, I prepared once more. I chose an outfit that felt both daring and true to the self I was emerging, a shimmering navy gown that moved like liquid in the dim light, paired with delicate jewelry that caught the light with every movement. I left my apartment with a sense of purpose, determined to embrace whatever revelations awaited me. The moonlit terrace was a hidden gem, a rooftop garden atop an old building, draped in soft fairy lights and exuding an air of quiet mystery. The terrace overlooked the city, its vast expanse of twinkling lights merging with the starry sky. I arrived alone, the cool night air filled with the scent of blooming jasmine and the faint sound of a distant piano. There, seated at a small table illuminated by a single candle, was a handwritten note that read, "To live is to be vulnerable. Embrace the night and all it offers." In that moment, I felt as if the universe was speaking directly to me, urging me to let go of the past and to open myself fully to the beauty and pain of a life reawakened. I sat there for what felt like hours, lost in thought and the gentle melody of the night. The moonlit terrace became my confessional, a place where I allowed myself to grieve for the lost years and to celebrate the rediscovery of a passion that had always been there. In that quiet solitude, I realized that the strange purchase alerts had not been a punishment, but a gift, a means to force me to confront the truths I had long hidden, to reclaim the parts of me that yearned for freedom and expression. As the first light of dawn began to soften the edges of the night, I left the moonlit terrace with a heart that was lighter, yet undeniably scarred by the journey. I knew that the path ahead would not be easy, there would be moments of doubt, of regret, and of lingering fear. But I also knew that I had taken the first courageous steps toward a life that was truly my own. The secrets of my midnight trysts, once hidden behind designer accessories and cryptic alerts, had finally been brought into the light. And with that exposure came the power to heal, to transform, and to rebuild a narrative that was no longer dictated by shame or routine. In the days and weeks that followed, I continued to integrate my two worlds, the safe, familiar routine and the exhilarating, if sometimes painful, realm of clandestine passion. I began to share my journey with those who were willing to listen, finding solace in the understanding of friends like Amelia and even in the quiet empathy of strangers. I learned to forgive myself for the secrets I had harbored, recognizing that every hidden moment had been a testament to my desire to feel something real in a world that often felt numbed by expectation. Now, as I write these final lines of my journal entry for this chapter, I reflect on the transformative power of confronting one's hidden truths. The strange purchase alerts that once shocked me have become markers on a path that led me from denial and isolation to acceptance and, ultimately, to a renewed embrace of life's infinite possibilities. I understand now that every midnight tryst, every whispered secret, and every designer accessory purchased in the dark was not merely an act of rebellion against routine, but an invitation to reclaim the parts of my soul that had always yearned for freedom. I stepped forward into the unfolding days with a newfound clarity, resolved to live authentically and without reservation. The journey of self-discovery is far from over, and while the past will always be a part of me, I now choose to let it illuminate the future rather than shackle me to it. I am no longer defined by the secrets I kept or the nights I tried to forget. I am defined by the courage it took to face those truths, to write them down, and to ultimately transform them into a life of passion and possibility. As the sun rises, painting the sky with hues of hope and renewal, I close this chapter with a quiet promise to myself, to never again hide in the shadows, but to embrace every moment, no matter how raw, how challenging, or how beautiful, as an essential part of who I truly am.